How's it going, everybody? So in this video, we're going to be talking about non-alcoholic fatty liver disease, okay? So this is a disease that I know a lot about, partially because I actually was diagnosed with non-alcoholic fatty liver disease when I was a younger child. And obviously I've done a ton of research on the subject. People who've been following me for a while know that I've been balls deep in the research on metabolic health and all the blood markers associated with it and how to reverse these diseases through basic nutritional changes, as well as, in certain case scenarios, adding certain targeted supplements and or herbs. Most people who follow me know that I'm all about finding the 20% of methods that yield you 80% of results, okay? So the biggest bang for your buck methods, right? So anyway, non-alcoholic fatty liver disease, I was actually diagnosed with it back in a time where I was on psychiatric medications that basically made me a zombie, contributed towards fat gain due to inactivity. Also, I was drinking all sorts of high sugar beverages, Monster energy drinks, lots of sodas. My diet was mostly pasta and cheese. Now, interestingly enough, despite all of this and despite the medications I was on, I was actually very active. I was skateboarding all the time. I think during that time I was 2 years into weightlifting and cardio. But the thing is, my diet was so bad that it didn't matter. So I was actually not extremely overweight, although I wouldn't say I was in shape. But I was very active and I was relatively lean. But I was drinking 2 to 3 Monster energy drinks a day, and I was eating pounds of pasta as well as lots of cheese. So here's the thing. So the scientific literature on the subject of non-alcoholic fatty liver disease, because remember, there's alcoholic fatty liver disease, which was induced entirely by drinking too much alcohol too consistently over a period of time. Then you have non-alcoholic fatty liver disease. So non-alcoholic fatty liver disease is a disease created from an over consumption of energy, okay, first and foremost, okay? So the mainstream consensus, okay, is too much energy coming in to the point where your body starts to spill over fatty acids and deposit it in, obviously, the body fat, so adipose tissue, but then also in the liver, okay? Now, here's my perspective on this, is that it is mostly a carbohydrate problem, okay? So I'm not anti-carbohydrate at all. But the way that, so for example, because if you notice, you have alcohol can cause the same problem, okay? The reason why is because carbohydrates and alcohol are both processed by the liver. And specifically, we're talking about glucose and fructose, without a shadow of a doubt. So they share similar pathways as far as metabolism is concerned. And basically what happens is, so when you overconsume carbohydrates, especially simple carbohydrates, so the liver glycogen starts to become full, okay? And obviously it has, so the liver can only store so much glycogen. And past a certain point, if you're storing more glycogen in the liver than you're burning, the liver starts to convert the carbohydrates that you're eating, the glucose, into fatty acids. And preferentially, this would be stored as adipose tissue, okay? So extra body fat. Preferentially, you'll just start getting more body fat, so that the energy can be stored for later and it won't cause you as many problems as if those fatty acids were stored in the liver. But if you're consuming too many carbohydrates at such a high rate that the body can't effectively store it as body fat, then it starts to deposit these fatty acids in the liver instead. And so the way I look at it is it's an overflow of carbohydrates coming in, okay, without the burning off of them. So if you're doing, high intensity exercise, or even just a high volume of exercise throughout the day on a consistent basis, or even just like 20 minutes of high intensity interval training, 3 times a week paired with resistance training, like weight training, and you're eating more carbohydrates, it would be much less likely for that to happen. So it's not like carbohydrates are bad per se. It's just if you're eating too many without burning them off, they will store in the liver to a certain degree. So, so you want to be burning off that glycogen. You want to be burning off those carbohydrates that you're consuming. And so the mainstream consensus, though, will just tell you it's calories in versus calories out. And they'll tell you that, fatty liver disease is a symptom of obesity or something. But for me, that was not my experience. Literally, I was my diet was mostly sugar from Monster and sodas and candy bars as well, lots of candy bars, and pasta. Okay? But I wasn't overweight for whatever reason. And I was pretty active, just not active enough. But yet I still had fatty liver disease, and it was pretty severe. And it didn't go away until I lowered the carbohydrates I was eating drastically and switched to a more protein-centric diet. So, but the thing is, whether you think it's calories or you think it's carbohydrates, it doesn't matter, because the protocols that are emphasized in mainstream medicine to reverse fatty liver disease are the same either way, okay? Whether you think it's carbs or calories, the proven methods of reversal, it's the same, okay? So basically what you want to do is, so you could do the, a freaking calorie counting diet or whatever. You can do if it fits your macros. But if you're really serious about this, my recommendation would be to lower your carbohydrates below 50 grams of net carbs per day. Now, net carbs, 50 grams, that's a lot of freaking carbs for you to eat. Even on a lot of like calorie counting type diets where the goal is just caloric restriction, most people are not eating much more than that. They might be eating 150 grams a day, but it depends on how you slice the macros. But yeah, so 50 grams net carbs per day, and then aim to get 1 gram per pound of ideal body weight of protein. And make sure that's from whole animal foods, okay? And in this case scenario, you don't have to be like, oh, I've got to get this protein or I'll die. But just if you're hungry, eat more protein, basically, from whole animal foods. Because those are going to have the nutrients you need, okay? If you're getting all your protein from like egg whites, you're not going to get a lot of nutrition from that. It's not going to be healthy. Also, you have the side effect of possibly having a higher homocysteine, which is not good, in the blood if you consume only egg whites or like whey protein, because without the yolk in the egg, for example, you're getting an abundance of cysteine and methionine, and these amino acids convert to homocysteine, and you don't get the B12 and the folate and the other things in the egg yolk that actually can clear that homocysteine and convert it into glutathione. So, whole animal protein for the nutrients and for satiation, because if you're eating mostly whole animal foods for your protein intake as the base of your diet, you're not going to have that appetite for sweets anymore. This is why high protein, low carb diets are so popular, and you hear so many people calling them magic. They just kind of regulate your hunger hormones, and they make your body nourished and satisfied, and they cure your kind of like your appetite for bad foods. So it's a lot easier to sustain the diet, compared to the people who like are craving sweets like crackheads. It's kind of bad, actually. Anyway, so the next thing you need to do, and this is probably even more important, Okay, so at the very least, reduce the glycemic load of your diet. If you're going to eat carbs, I would recommend staying away from bananas, but eating any other fruit. And then if you're going to have grains, eat brown rice, eat beans, okay? Because these are going to have a lower glycemic load, okay? Big difference between glycemic index and glycemic load. Glycemic load is the amount of carbs per serving versus how high they spike the blood sugar, okay? Glycemic index is just how high they spike the blood sugar, but that doesn't matter within the context of the carbohydrate density, which glycemic load takes into account. So yeah, low glycemic load, focus on whole foods in general, but I would recommend just following a protein diet and keeping the net carbs below 50, because if you do that, even without extreme exercise, you are guaranteed to deplete liver glycogen to the point where your body's gonna have to start burning off those fatty acids that's stored in the liver. And the key here is what we're trying to do with nutrition and exercise is train your body to burn off that extra energy that got stored in the liver, okay, as fat. So fatty liver disease is just extra energy in the liver stored as fat, okay, probably due to too many carbohydrates coming in over time. So exercise protocols, okay. High intensity interval training is king. It's the most time efficient way of doing such a thing. And if you're brand new to exercise, literally just jogging for 30 seconds and then walking for a minute and just doing intervals like that for 20 minutes on and off is going to be high intensity interval training for someone brand new, okay. Now, otherwise, just doing power walking mixed with brisk regular walking, okay. As in intervals, 1 minute of brisk walking, 1 minute of regular walking. If you're severely overweight or just can't jog for whatever reason, that's a good way to get started. And over time, you want to decrease the rest period and increase the intensity. And your body will keep adapting, and it'll get really easy to the point where eventually you could jog for a full 20 minutes after a while of training this way, and you won't even get tired because your body will adapt over time. You want to do this at least three times a week, okay? And on top of the high intensity interval training, okay, you do it anyway. Anything where you go pretty hard and pretty intensely for a minute, and then you rest for like a minute, and then do that over and over again. That is going to be high intensity interval training, and you can just cater it to your level of exercise, whatever's intense for you. And then on top of that, you want a baseline level of low intensity exercise. So that means walking for like 30 to 60 minutes a day. You should park your car far away from the grocery store as far as you can and just walk. And if you feel like that's hell for you, you need to do it anyway, because literally, like, that's honestly sad. No matter how overweight you are, that's going to be perfect. If it sucks, that's great, because that means your body's working. For me personally, I do that just by instinct because it's easier to drive out of the parking lot. And I go to the great big grocery stores, the super supermarkets that have the giant freaking parking lots. It's like a mile walk. But for me, the walk doesn't register. And I carry like gallons of water and all my groceries by hand back and forth. But I don't notice it because I've been doing it for so long, okay? I just do it because it's easy to get out of the parking lot. But I notice, like, I have family members who, even just halfway through the parking lot, they're dying, like just walking to the grocery store. And that is a sign that your health and your fitness, which are similar but not the same, are extremely bad. And you need to get to the point where you can walk the freaking parking lot, okay, without dying, okay? So people who have fatty liver disease and they can't walk the entire parking lot to the grocery store, it's kind of like a huge correlation there. It's like, well, of course your body's storing fat in your liver because you're not burning anything off if you're that out of shape, really. Anyway, so those are just easy hacks, take the stairs instead of the elevator, when you're at work or wherever. Always take an opportunity to get more exercise. And you do have time. Another thing is resistance training. So you could do lots of different things. Okay, so you got burpees, you got various forms of get-ups, Turkish get-ups, technical get-ups, body weight squats. Do whatever you can with your fitness level. And if you're overweight or whatever, you can use like a chair or something to keep you stable. You could do squats onto a chair and off. It doesn't matter so much what you do per se, as long as you do it with a decent intensity at a decent frequency for a decent volume, okay? But ideally, you would want to do strength training. You'd want to gain muscle mass to make you more insulin sensitive, so that those carbs and so that those calories are being used to feed the muscles, to keep the muscles alive, instead of being used to keep fat alive in your tissues. Okay? Technically, you want to exchange muscle for fat, even though like scientifically that's not the right terminology and mechanism. But that's essentially what happens eventually. You get to a point where, like where I'm at, where you have so much muscle mass, if you eat over your caloric limit for a while, all that's doing is keeping muscle alive rather than that's why people with more muscle mass can eat so much without gaining fat, because they have so much muscle in their frame. So fatty liver disease, you need to restrict energy, preferably both calories and carbs, eat a higher protein diet, and you want to do exercises that deplete your body of glycogen, deplete your body of fat, okay? Don't do no detox nonsense. Don't worry about supplements. And it doesn't matter if you add nuts and seeds or any other so-called magical fruit into your diet. I've seen an article that said, like, if you add spinach to your diet, it's like the second best food you can eat to like reverse fatty liver. The fact is, there's no actual like intervention trials showing that that's the case. People who don't understand how to interpret science will just kind of be easily bamboozled by that. But the fact is, you can add all the spinach to your diet that you want. You can add nuts and seeds. You can add whatever superfoods are claimed to reverse this condition, and it's not going to help, because the underlying cause is how much carbs you're consuming, basically, or an overfill of energy in versus energy out. Okay, so if all you do is add these like supplements or superfoods that are claimed to help you with fatty liver disease, but you're still eating the high carb, high calorie diet, and you're not exercising properly, nothing you add to your diet is going to help, because fatty liver disease is not a deficiency in spinach or sunflower seeds. It's not a deficiency in some superfood that's claimed to like help with the condition, okay? Those studies are correlation, they're observational studies, they're epidemiology, they are not intervention trials. They do not help, okay? But following this protocol that I'm talking about will fucking reverse that condition fast, okay? That's what I had to do, and that's what thousands of other people also do, and it is standard practice, whether it's just caloric restriction or carb restriction combined with vigorous exercise. Medical practitioners that want to help their patients, this is what they tell them to do. So, yeah. Let me know if you have any questions or comments down below, and I'll talk to y'all next time.